A little over a year ago, undefeated Alabama met undefeated LSU in the game of the year.
Into the end zone! Touchdown, Alabama! Touchdown, Tigers! How about that?
The Tigers were coming. Today, they arrived.
But this season has been anything but a victory ride for LSU, with bright spots hard to find.
Emery gets it. Touchdown!
Meanwhile, the tide continues to roll.
Statement time for Alabama. The juggernaut rolls on.
It's number 1 Alabama against LSU in a primetime showdown in Death Valley. And so we are in Death Valley. And the Home Depot SEC on CBS brings us the 85th meeting between the Tigers of LSU and the Crimson Tide of Alabama. Alabama comes in unbeaten and number 1 in the country. And as you take a look at the SEC standings, it looks like this. Florida has punched their ticket to Atlanta by virtue of their win earlier in our first game. The victory over Tennessee sends the Gators to Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta December 19th. Will it be Alabama to face them? We're going to find out tonight. Alabama wins, and they're headed to Atlanta as well. Welcome to Baton Rouge, everybody. I'm Brad Nussler with Gary Danielson and Jamie Erdahl. Partner, only in this topsy-turvy 2020 season could you think about a defending national champion like LSU being the biggest underdog in 40 years trying to defend their crown against a team like Alabama, and Alabama's the team that's rolling like LSU was a year ago.
Well, you summed it up right. I mean, for a decade, this has been the marquee game in this conference, and you knew, both teams knew they were the better team and they'd fight it out. LSU wants to believe, but they need some early success. Alabama wants to snuff it out right away, but remember, we know playing on the road is number 1 is pressure, so we'll see what happens.
Well, last year it was Joe Burrow, who was a Heisman candidate, went on to win it. This year we've got a guy that's in the mix for Alabama, and Mac Jones.
Yeah, we said, when will we ever see a year like this? Well, it took a year, and Mac Jones is doing it. His stats are amazing when you look at it, but when you watch him play, what he does, I mean, he takes the top off the defense. If you're not careful, he'll hit them deep. Maneuvers the pocket as well as you can, making those throws. And when you need that tight throw to a Devontae Smith, he just carves you up. He's having a Heisman year and, more importantly, a championship year.
You know, we talked at the end of the week about this Alabama team, and having seen them so many times, it just looks like they're getting better every week.
You know, last week we said they got a big 3. Well, any direction you look, they're big, okay? You know, you look one way, and they got a big 5. That offensive line, so physical. 5 guys have been mauling people. They could almost run every play and be contenders. Then you look in the secondary. Patrick Surtain is one of the elite corners. Josh Jobe is coming on strong. A pair right there. And then they got that defensive line. It's like a big 7, 8, or 9. Almost doesn't seem fair. Alabama is rotating one guy in after another. They're a number 1 team in the country.
Well, LSU is struggling offensively without a doubt, and it doesn't help that another guy opted out this week. If you missed it, Terrace Marshall, who's the leading receiver, his last catch was a touchdown against Texas A&M. He went to Ed Orgeron and said, "Coach, I'm going and preparing for the NFL draft," so they lose their top receiver. That doesn't help the cause when you got 2 freshman quarterbacks.
That means only 1 returning starter back on this offense for LSU, and as you mentioned, they're going with 2 true freshmen. With the injury to Miles Brennan, the starter at the beginning of the year, 2 potentially good football players, but potential in a game like this is not enough. They need some help. And I think in this game, it's got to be this LSU defense, and perhaps if they're All-American Derek Stingley, he's going to be matched up against Devontae Smith. Could he get some wins, get some field position for these young quarters? This offense for LSU needs some help.
Well, that's the matchup we'll watch. That's worth the price of admission. Devontae Smith against Derek Stingley. Kickoff is coming up. Alabama looking for a little payback from the loss on their home field last year. The Home Depot SEC on CBS is sponsored by Sonic, Head and Shoulders, GMC, and by State Farm.